Welcome back to Quiet Waters Currents. One of the questions I get all the time from investors is this: who actually makes short-term rentals work once you own the property? A lot of the times people will manage it themselves, but many people also are looking at partnering with a local property manager. And buying the right house totally matters. Underwriting it accurately matters. But execution is really where the deal either quietly compounds or slowly bleeds out. And that is why I'm excited today to talk with Joe Prillaman, owner of Host Help, a local short-term rental property manager who's in the trenches every day. Him and his team are handling guest inquiries, pricing, maintenance, turnovers, and all the things that don't go on the spreadsheets when you're analyzing a property. Joe works directly with owners to turn their properties into real operating businesses, not just pretty listings. And today we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit on what actually matters if you're investing in short-term rentals here in coastal North Carolina. Looking forward so much to this conversation with Joe, and I hope you listen and get some value out of it as well. All right, Joe, my friend, it's good to see you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
And I was thinking back to the first time that I met you, and I think it was a few years ago now, and you were starting your investing journey by, I think, like burring properties out in Fayetteville. And I think I had to beg you to like come and talk at a local meetup we were hosting. And yeah, it turns out we knew a lot of the same people, and you're basically the same person, is what I learned.
Absolutely. I'd say that's a great way to describe it. Yeah, man. It's more than a few years ago now. We're coming up on a decade, which is crazy. But yeah, that was the start back in the old the OG Bigger Pockets days of how do we buy properties and get them for no money down and get them cash flowing, and those are the fun times.
Absolutely. Yeah. And somehow now you've managed to get into short-term rental management, which very excited to let you share the story about that. But just to kind of establish a vantage point so listeners can, see kind of where you're at now, can you tell us about how many properties you currently manage and what markets you're in?
Yeah. So we manage mainly, it's all short-term rentals here on the coast of North Carolina. And so our primary markets are Topsail, Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, Curry Beach, and we're breaking a little bit into Oak Island right now, but it's really anything that's within about an hour of Wilmington. And so we manage a few in Wilmington as well, but our main focus are the beaches. Now, I personally have a portfolio up in Banner Elk, North Carolina as well. So I've got some mountain properties, and I've got a random one-off one that we have in Charlotte. But I built the company really around how I wanted my units operated, because it's really hard to do short-term rentals at a really high level. And so making sure you have all the processes and systems and that all the amenities get set out, and then doing that at scale is kind of a bear. And so, I really wasn't able to find anyone who run my portfolio the way I wanted it done. And here we are, short-term rental management.
Let's do it. And how many properties is Host Help managing now?
At this point, we will be at about 90 properties, and
wow.
I own about 20 of those.
Awesome. And so what type of owners do you typically work with? Is it a lot of, accidental investors or first-time short-term rental investors who are, fed up with managing it themselves, or more like seasoned operators, would you say?
Yeah, great question. So there's a variety, obviously, but the people that I found that we help the most are the people who are self-managing their properties. The people who set it up to be a really high performer on Airbnb, that like really care about not only the guest experience, but making the most income they can out of the properties and the quality of their homes. And so those are the people that we serve the best, because that's honestly who I was. I was like, I want my property to be top tier. I want our guests to have an awesome time. I want our cleaners to get really well taken care of. Like, the people who really care about the whole function of it are the main people that we work with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt. And it does. And just to give you and your team a shout out, my wife and I were managing a short-term rental of ours in Surf City. We've been managing it for 2 years, and it was performing like pretty good. And it was we just got so burnt out by it. The constant calls, just we weren't doing a great job of being kind of in the weeds and doing the small quality control things that really set you apart. Like, we put a lot of effort in on the front end, and then kind of let our standards drop over time. And your team came in, man, and it was like a breath of fresh air. Grant came in with a checklist and was getting so in the weeds with, well, what's, this owner's closet is not a great spot because we need this, and this. We're moving it to here. We're going to use this lock. It was like, it was a lot, but it was such a breath of fresh air, because it gave me the confidence that's like, man, you guys know what you're doing. And now it's very hands off for us. And yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, man. And that's like, the setup, the stuff that you're hitting on is by far the most important. And because it just sets everyone up for success long term. Like, if we know the things that make it so that it's easier to manage, but also increases the guest experience, and then we're able to maintain a higher standard on the property moving forward. And so, we really appreciate you guys trusting us with your home, because that's the thing. It's like, these are like massive assets for people. Sometimes these are their biggest assets. And like, we want to make sure that we honor them and keep their homes in as great a condition as possible, but also understanding we're running guests through this as hard as we can to make as much income as we can for everybody. And it's definitely a balance between that. And so I'm just a huge fan of like people really doing what you guys did, of self-managing it, of learning the ropes and figuring it out. And then a company like us, like with Host Help, like, we step in whenever you get to that point of where it's either not worth your time or you're just burned out from running it. And so it's a very unique kind of way we've built it, because there's just not a lot of property management companies that do it this way. And so we saw the need in the market, and we've been ripping.
Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. And yeah, kind of digging into that a little bit more, I guess, like, can we step back all the way to like, what was your first short-term rental investment personally?
Oh, yeah. So back in 2019, I was doing Burrs in Fayetteville, and a good friend of mine actually got on the Bigger Pockets podcast. And overnight, I wasn't able to buy properties on the MLS anymore, because all the prices went up like 10 grand because everyone started buying the homes that I was buying. And I was like, well, I can't make these numbers work anymore. And I found another guy who was doing short-term rentals on Carolina Beach, North Carolina. And he kind of showed me the ropes of how short-term rentals worked. And his wife actually sold me my very first duplex on the island. It was 2 little 1930s cottages. And that was like our first step into it. And so when we saw it worked and we had the proof of concept, we just went all in on it. Like, my wife and I, we ended up house hacking. We ended up finding a couple different deals off market, and like, we went all in on the short-term rental game. We're like, this is it. This is what we want to do. And it was all about us at that point, like buying our own personal properties, because back then we were able to make them cash flow really well and figure out how to do it on a very, very low budget.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what was the point where, so this went on for a few years, right? You continued to try and scale your personal investment portfolio. And then when was it where you were like, all right, it's time to start Host Help and, start managing properties for other people?
Yeah. So, during that time, I went and got my real estate license. And so I was working for a group just selling like beach houses to people that were investing in short-term rentals. And so when the interest rates hit and a lot of out-of-state people kind of stopped buying investment properties, like my business really kind of dried up at that point. And so my thought then was I had been using that to generate active income to buy more real estate for ourselves. And so I was like, okay, like we're at a point now that we don't need to continue like being an agent and like generate active income. I'm just going to focus on my portfolio now and like buying more rental properties. And in that, we actually had some pretty large losses from two different natural disasters. So we had a hurricane that came through, and it actually technically wasn't a hurricane, but it was just a really, really bad rainstorm. And those two cottages I was talking about, they flooded. And so I lost my two most profitable short-term rentals in like a span of a couple hours. We had like a foot and a half of water in them. Like my guest escaped on a paddleboard on his birthday out the front door. Like it was wild. And so we were kind of picking the pieces up from that and going, okay, like, we're okay. Like we had 30 units at this point, and we're like, we had two of them go away, but we're going to be fine. And then 2 weeks later, Hurricane Helene hit and shut down my 7 unit up in Banner Elk. And so in like a 2-week span, we were like, okay, like we've lost a third of the portfolio and we don't know what we're going to do at this point. And we had already had the idea of host help at that point. Like I was actually already managing one home. Like I built out the business plan. I went and I'm the broker in charge. I have the firm. And I was like, okay, like this is the direction I see us going, but it was going to kind of be like a side hustle to my like personal portfolio. I was like, I'm just going to do it for the people that I really, really like so I can help them manage their properties the same way I want mine done. And the hurricane put us in a spot where we were like, okay, like we've got to find a way out of this somehow. And we are really, really good at managing our portfolio. I'm just going to go tell everybody that we're managing now and like really give this property management thing a go. And it was myself, Grant, Elizabeth, and I think we had Nick as well on board at that point. So we had 4 people on the team. And I was just like, we're doing it. This is like our new direction. We're going to try the property management thing. And man, I couldn't be more shocked at where we are today. A year and a half later, we've got 10 team members. We're managing 90 homes. And like, it's been one of the best things that happened to me long term. But during walking through that trial was awful. I mean, like I lost a ton of weight. I was super stressed. I was like, I've got to figure out how to like do this. And it lit a fire underneath me to be like, I'm going to build an incredible management company and take care of all these people. And yeah, it worked out so well, man. Like our properties up in the mountains ended up like getting taken care of and fixed, and like that market came back to life. I'm currently right now actually starting pulling the permits for fixing the cottages. Originally we were going to demolish them, and there was a bunch of craziness with all that, but it looks like we're going to fix one of them, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, we've got just an incredible team now that we can build and grow. And so our kind of goal for the years, we're trying to get to 150 properties that we manage at this level. And then, yeah, who knows what we'll do after that, but that's our kind of benchmark, big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's been a blast getting there.
No, I love it, man. I was going to ask what happened with the mountain properties and the beach cottages, and if your guest ended up making it safe out on the paddleboard. That's a pretty epic escape.
He did. He survived. He made it. Him and his fiance, they were able to escape, and it was just quite an epic journey of the stuff that would happen. But the cool part is that I feel like we have compressed multiple lifetimes of experiences into 7 years since I started this journey of I can tell you everything you need to know about flood insurance. I can tell you everything you need to know about contracts and selling homes. I can tell you everything you need to know about burrs and flips. And I've done a little bit of all of it at this point. And I'm finally at a point where I'm so thankful I've honed in on what I'm actually good at and what I want to focus and grow, which is the management side. There's not a lot of people who are really passionate about short-term rental management because it is very difficult, but I just, yeah, I'm in love with it.
No, it is really hard, and it's you guys are doing such a good job, and yeah, congrats on the success so far for sure. And yeah, I'm just really, really grateful for you, man, and your team. And with your and what do you can you talk a little bit about like how you guys divide some of the labor? Because when you're self-managing, I'm just looking back from my experience, it's like you're doing everything. If there's an issue, if there's a question, like obviously there's like AI and some
Yep.
stuff that you can leverage now, but you know, it's on you completely. And I've seen a couple people try and do what you're doing and try and build like short-term rental management or co-hosting stuff and just get so burnt out by just
Yep.
the just the ankle biter things over time. But yeah, can you talk about how your team kind of divides up some of the labor?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the hardest parts about the industry if you're trying to build something bigger and do this, because like you said, when you're managing it yourself, like you don't realize that you're actually doing like 10 jobs. You just are doing 10 jobs with such a low amount of volume that you can do it. And as you grow and scale, like guest communication alone is an entire division with multiple people underneath it. Like, and that's really how we have it broken out. So we have the company broken out into, I'd say two different segments, if that makes sense. So we have just our operations, which is just the day to day. And that is everything that's happening at a property, from cleans to maintenance to like bookings and reservations to like working with guests, that kind of realm. We have a whole group of people that are just dedicated to that. And it's really broken out into department heads. So I have a department head over communication. She has, I think, 4 people underneath her at this point. I've got a head of cleaners and maintenance. Right now, it's kind of one group, but they overlap so much because our cleaners are constantly telling us about things that are breaking and things that are happening. And then it steps into kind of the other side of the business where you have sales and marketing, you've got technology, you've got finance. Like I'm a really big fan of a way of organizing your business called EOS. And so we have everything broken out into like individual roles with individual responsibilities. And every one of those people has goals that we're shooting for. And so you'll realize that as you're building that. I truly think if you're going to build a management company, to do it well and to be able to have the caliber of people you need to do it well, you really need about 50 properties just to cover your overhead. And then from that standpoint, you start looking at, okay, what other aspects of the business am I missing so that we can have that full package? Because when someone comes in and they're trusting you with your asset, like they're expecting not only for the cleans to be perfect and the maintenance to be perfect, but also that you're generating the highest returns possible, which some of these goals are kind of pushing against each other. Like it's much easier to have a perfect condition home if you don't run a million guests through it. So you've got to figure out where's the sweet spot between how do we generate as much income as we can, keep the home in the best condition as possible, and then at the same time, make it so that you're marketing that to other people, that you are, just doing all the things. There's so many pieces into it. And again, this is why I recommend like self-managing, because then you find out the whole like, okay, not only does every single owner's closet need to have a detailed checklist of what everything we have in here so that we can support our cleaners, but then you also have to know, okay, when a guest walks in and there's water coming through the ceiling, like, what do you do? How quickly do you do it? And so you'll find water tends to be one of those things that you just stop everything when you find water, and you find more water than you think.
Do you have, and if you don't have anything off the top of your head, no worries, but do you have like just a nightmare scenario that you guys have dealt with in the past, year or two?
Oh, I got all of them, baby. I got tons of them. Let me give you the funniest one because it's about Grant and his property. So we had been working together for a long time at this point, and when you're doing short-term rentals and you're getting started, you're working 24/7. And so we finally said, you know what? We're taking a day. We're going to go fishing and we're going to have fun and we're not going to worry about everything that's happening. We can put everything on the back burner and we're going to go have a day to just kind of unwind. And so it was Grant, myself, another good friend of ours from college. And we got on the boat, left the boat ramp, got on this like awesome like school of redfish up in Topsail, back in the creeks. And we were just having a blast. And right as soon as we got on like the best fish possible, Grant gets like a message and he looks at his phone. He just goes, "Oh my gosh." And his guest had walked into his house. And I hate laughing at this because it ruined his day. But like he has this duplex on Carolina Beach. And there was a hidden water heater behind a wall that he didn't know about. So this building used to be a quadplex, and so it had 4 water heaters, and he just had no idea this water heater even existed. And it was like behind a wall, like totally walled off. You would never know this thing was there. And that was the day it decided to pop. And when it popped, since it was on the very top in the attic of the building, it just rained down through the whole top. And so his guest shows up and they open the door to the bedroom and the entire ceiling has fallen in and there's just water pouring in all on his hardwood floors, on everything, and just running through his entire house. And so that kind of ruined our fishing day.
You can't make that up.
It's even better because it happened to Grant, because that stuff normally happens to me. But when something happens to Grant, it's wonderful.
You can sympathize, though. I'm sure you helped out however you
absolutely. Could. And that's what we did. We just descended on it. And honestly, like, I think, I don't even know if he had to move that guest. Like, we went in and got everything cleaned up and then got the property livable again, swapped out the hot water heater, all that jazz. And then, the key is just getting everything cleaned up and fixed as quick as possible and just having really great contacts. And when you get put in situations where you have to figure it out, you do, which is awesome.
No, that's a great, that's some great wisdom there. I want to get into kind of some market trends and everything. And, but before we do, one of our biggest, and I don't know if I keep bringing it back to me just because like short-term rentals have been such a big part of our life for the past, we got our first one in 2018. And, so, and one of the most frustrating things, and this wasn't common, but it did happen a few times, is when you just get that guest who, is just trying to rake you over the coals and get refunds. And we had a guest check in to our Lake Gaston rental, and I mean, within 30 minutes, she had sent us a picture of like the Keurig, like, our cleaners there are great, but the Keurig, if you open up the Keurig, you can like dig your finger down into like where you put the pods, and there might be like some coffee residue or something, saying it was dirty. And just, I could tell like this was going to be really a difficult situation to manage. And sure enough, like that whole week, it was just one thing after the other. And we tried to be responsive and, help out, but it was clear like this person's not going to stop, and they're probably reading some Reddit thread about how to, get refunds in Airbnbs and stuff. Yep. Like, have you guys dealt with that much? And if so, how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've dealt with it a lot. And so we've had to put in a lot of systems to just prepare for that. And unfortunately, it can create some situations where you think someone is taking advantage of you and they're truly not. Like, there actually are some issues on that. And so just approaching it from a place where you're understanding where the guest is coming from, but documenting everything to the T. And so like, we make sure that we have security cameras now at every single property. We make sure that we have the smart locks. We make sure the smart locks are working, so that we can track when people are coming in and coming out. And the way you word stuff is also very important. We also have like a dedicated Airbnb support rep now. So once you get big enough in doing this, like we have someone at Airbnb that, I mean, I've got her cell phone number. Like I can contact her directly if I need to. I try not to, but like it's one of those things where I can get advice from them of like, hey, what should we do in this type situation? And so as you're working that way and getting bigger and bigger, like it makes sense to have additional pieces in place. Like for example, like a lot of people don't take rental contracts. And so like we require it for every single guest. So every guest that comes through, like they're going to sign my short-term rental agreement that they're staying in the home and these are the rules and the regulations. We make sure that all of our listings have very detailed information of here's the house rules, here's what you violated. And we also just know how to work directly with Airbnb better now. So we've had enough reps where people have unfortunately taken advantage of us. And we've learned, okay, here is how you need to respond to Airbnb. Here's how you need to respond to VRBO, like all the different OTAs that are, bringing us business. And we're very thankful for them, but they do lean very, very heavily towards supporting the guest and not supporting the host. And so, just work with other people who've had that experience. If you're trying to do it yourself, like, very much so trying to get into communities of people who are dealing with this every day, because, the one thing that is constant is change. Airbnb changes their rules, their regulations, and their policies all the time. And you can be doing something totally fine one week, and then the next week they decide that's not okay. And you've got to relearn how you're going to keep from having guests take advantage of you. But, honey will attract a lot more bees. And so there are times that you just have to bend over backwards for some guests. And then there are some times that you really just have to put your foot down and be like, no, this is not how it works, and be okay with the fact that they're probably going to leave you a bad review.
Yeah. And I guess, is there a way that, well, I assume that by forcing people to sign a contract and not just, book direct through Airbnb, like I'm sure that weeds out some of the grifters out there. But I guess do you try and avoid doing like refunds and stuff? Because I was like, I'm just going to basically just offer to pay this person
them off, right?
Like, it's clear what I'm doing here. But then so I refunded her a couple $100, and then, but then it kept coming and
right.
So, is that ever something you guys do or no?
We try to be very, very cautious on doing that because we don't want to set that precedent that okay, anything happens, we're going to take care of you. Like I would rather DoorDash someone a brand new item than pay them a couple $100. And so in the example of the Keurig, for example, especially if it was one of the inexpensive ones, we would just go, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, we'll take care of this for you immediately. And then we'll just hop on DoorDash and send them a new Keurig, because we can do that for $60 instead of paying them, refunding a cleaning fee or something like that. And so the goal is to find the cheapest option possible to take care of the guest. And sometimes the cheapest option is just hopping on the phone with them, which is hey, tell us what's going on. So you can't have two mad people in the same room. And so if they're upset about your clean and then you hop on, you go, you know what? I'm furious as well. I cannot believe that they would leave a place this dirty. And and even if you know that they're being completely ridiculous, you can be we're going to talk to our cleaners. And we do. We go back and we review everything they send us, and we go, either this was unreasonable or this was a very reasonable thing for the guest to bring to our attention. And so, it's just knowing how to communicate with your guests in a way that you are still protecting your homeowners by spending the least amount of money and fighting for those 5-star reviews. But I mean, there's always going to be some situations where the best thing that you can possibly do is just pay someone and then they'll leave. Yeah.
With the reviews, what I was always terrified to leave someone a 4-star, 3-star review, because I was they're going to find it before they leave my review and then they're going to crush us. But I never really dug into it. This was just this fear, probably irrational fear that I had. But do you guys leave people bad reviews if they're a nightmare guest?
Oh, absolutely. I'll absolutely tear them up. The thing you have to be cautious of if you're going to do it is it's much easier for a guest to call in to like Airbnb and get a review taken down. It is next to impossible for a host to do it. And so if you do have a guest where it's like, okay, we're going to leave them a really bad review at this point, it's important to set up a follow-up to be able to still see their account and check their account in like a month or two to make sure your review is still up, because Airbnb is notorious for taking down the guests' bad reviews, but leaving their bad review on you. And so if nothing else, we bring that to Airbnb's attention and we go, hey, this isn't okay. Like, they left us a bad review. We left them a bad review. Why is theirs taken down and why is ours still up? And so we've had some altercations with Airbnb about that before. But at the end of the day, I mean, we all have tricks to doing it. Like my software, for example, will leave a bad review on the very last second of the time allotted to do it, if that's the route that we want to go. But reviews are an interesting game of kind of cat and mouse. So if we have a guest that's like, they were kind of difficult, but like it wasn't too bad and we don't really want to deal with it, a lot of times we just won't leave a review and we hope they don't leave us a review, and then we'll kind of ride that period out. And then there are other guests that like they've had an awful time and then the very first thing they do is leave us a terrible review. And so we will then set our software to leave them a bad review, but we'll push it out for 14 days so that we can build up all the documentation and everything we need in case we have to go fight Airbnb for it. And things like that. It's just playing the game and knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's some strategy involved for sure.
Definitely some strategy, 100%. And I mean, I've had the times where I've called guests and just like, hey, like, why did we do this? And so and a lot of times guests are very understanding and they want to talk to somebody. And so we leave the little magnets in the units, at least in some of mine, where it has like, here's the 5-star rating, and then every single guest that like our last communication with them is hey, we really hope you enjoyed your stay. Like, please reach out to us if you had any issues. And here's like what 5 stars actually means. And then we break that out for them so that a lot of people will show up and go, this is the best stay I ever had in my entire life. 4 stars. So they're like, oh, it's a 4-star hotel. No, not okay.
Yeah.
But I will say the key with this is volume. Like the volume of people that you can run through your unit and forcing those 5-star reviews. Because if you're like having lower reservations and longer stays, like some people think that's good, but from a review standpoint, it's not great. And so then if you get 1 4-star review, all of a sudden your ratings are plummeting. Like, you really want to focus on running a lot of people through your property, especially when it's brand new, just so you can build up that review base.
That's such a good point. What do you guys do for the summers? Because there's kind of these two camps, at least from what I've seen here on Topsail Island, where it's like Saturday to Saturday, no flexing on that, versus like, oh, we'll allow Friday to Monday bookings and then fill in the gaps. And that's actually better because, you know, you can charge more for those weekend nights and for people who only want to stay a few nights. But yeah, where do you guys fall in there?
It depends on the size of the property, but we lean much more towards the non-traditional. So if it's a really large property, we'll have like a 4-3-2 model is what we call it, where it's a 4-night on the weekends, 3-night on the weekdays, and then we'll fill 2-night gaps in between it. For most of my properties, I run a 3-2-1, where I've got 3 on the weekends, 2 on the weekdays, and then I'll fill 1-night gaps. So I'm fine with people coming and having 1-night stays. And most of our homeowners are as well. And that also has to do with more the back end stuff of where we have insurance policies that are built into every single reservation that the guest doesn't know that they're purchasing. We wrap it into their cleaning fee. And if they do damage the property, like, we don't necessarily have to go through Airbnb. We can immediately go through our insurance policy. And so we do a lot of that stuff to protect our homeowners from that standpoint. But doing that model, number one, gets you way more reviews. 2, you generate a lot more income than the normal like 7 nights typically. And then it just pushes you so hard in the algorithm that we just find you make the most money if we do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Cool. So kind of leaning into that, like market trends, what have you seen recently? Because things change all the time with the different booking platforms and where guests are coming from. And obviously we're in a very seasonal market here too. Can you talk a little bit about kind of broader market trends that you're seeing on the coast here in North Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of two main trends that I've seen this year that are, we're kind of wading through them because we're trying to figure out what's going on. But number one is Airbnb's pricing structure. So they did a major change to their pricing structure this last year where essentially they're putting the entire charge on the homeowner now. And forever they've done it where you had the option to either have the guest pay it or you were paying it as the host. And so netting out, it actually nets out the same to the guest, but the way Airbnb changed it has pushed prices so much higher on their platform that we've noticed everybody in the market has raised their prices. And so we've bumped everything up at minimum 15% across the board. And so it's showing, because Airbnb tends to be like the people who bring in the most bookings for everyone. But everyone else has kind of followed suit of raising their prices that way. And it'll be interesting to see how that nets out, because the people who didn't change their prices were getting like a lot of bookings just going, wow, this is great. What they don't realize is that they're paying the additional 15% themselves and kind of missed the trend on that. And so we pushed up everything on our portfolio of like 18.34% essentially on Airbnb. And that nets out to the guest the same of what they were paying before. And so it sounds trivial that it's like it didn't change anything, but it did. Like not everybody got the memo. And so there's a lot of people who have their pricing just off this next year. And I would say keep your prices higher for longer and get to a point of where you have just one source of truth for your pricing. So we run everything through our pricing software, Price Labs. And then if we have properties that are struggling to get bookings, that's when we'll go into the individual platforms and do promotions based through them to try and boost it in their algorithm. But you really want one source of truth for your pricing at this point, and I would not be leaning on the OTAs for that. So I'd make sure that you have your own pricing strategy really dialed in for this. As a seasonal market, just understand that you will be able to fill anything in the summer. And so try to hold out for longer on your summer prices because you will be able to fill them. The shoulder seasons, we've had a really, really good shoulder season this year, which is just the spring and the fall, a little bit into the winter. But I think this is the year of amenities. And what I mean by that is during COVID, pricing lead times got very, very compressed. So right as soon as like COVID ended, people stopped planning very far in the future for their stays. And that trend has not gone away. The only thing that I see that is reversing that trend are amenities. And when I say amenities, I mean like hot tubs, cute, clean, and comfortable is kind of the standard now of like a nice looking property. But anything that has like the extra oomph to it, like you're providing better beach gear, you've got like a little putt-putt course, like all of those things, the biggest one being hot tubs and pools. The people who have those, I'm seeing lead times pushed out substantially farther than people who don't. And so if you have all the amenities and you've got the really well marketed listings that are set up well, you're talking even a couple months lead time at this point. And everybody else is fighting for that very last minute booking. That's the biggest thing I've seen. And I don't like using our homeowners properties. And so I like to look at the two that I have. So I've got two identical units. They're smaller. They're pretty far back from the beach. They're 1 bedroom, 1 bath units, but they're just both adorable. And one of them has like all the amenities to the nine. The other one's just staged really, really well. And the difference in lead time for that property is a good 45 to 60 days. And the income difference between the one that has the hot tub, the fire pit, the Instagram wall, all that jazz, it's almost double the income that the other one generates. And the other one is like 2 blocks closer to the beach. And so it's the year of amenities, I would say.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think that's kind of what we're seeing too from the sales side with, there's some of these properties that are listed for sale and they include rental history,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes such a big difference when, you know, even though most buyers understand that, like, hey, the past performance doesn't, you know, doesn't mean that's how it's going to perform in the future. It's so much dependent on how you manage it. But there's, I mean, oceanfront properties here that are, you know, only making 50 grand a year. And it's really, I don't think some sellers fully understand the impact of the poor, you know, rental performance, and how you're really turning off the whole class of buyers that would buy it as an investment property, because,
Yep.
you know, they're not interested in that, even though we can show them reports showing like, hey, this property will make over 100,000, like, easy. But yeah, it's definitely the ones with the amenities though up here. It's
Yeah.
pretty rare to have the pools and even the hot tubs still.
And I'll
Yeah.
say that is a very interesting thing about Topsail. Topsail, Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, Curry Beach, like they're kind of similar in that way. But like if you even go, it's not too far south. If you go down to like Ocean Isle, for example, every home there has a hot tub, a pool, a like putt-putt course, like everything at this point. And those properties like are all competing with that. But for some reason, like these ones up here, an hour around Wilmington, like it's very, very rare that people do anything like that. And it's just such an opportunity to be that top performer because nobody else is doing it. It's very strange to me that like that's how it goes. And it's different between different size units. But on Carolina Beach, for example, I think I manage the only properties on the island that are one bedrooms that have hot tubs. And they all do extremely well. But everybody else I talk to that have the one bedrooms that don't have them, they're doing half the income. And these aren't expensive hot tubs either. Like they're pretty cheap ones and really good photos. But there's just little opportunities like that that a lot of people are missing right now.
Yeah. What with the hot tubs, a lot of people ask, what's the cost to install and what's the maintenance look like? Can you quickly touch on that?
Yeah. So a typical maintenance schedule on a hot tub, if you're going to have someone coming out weekly, it's probably going to be $250 to $300 a month to maintain it. If you're purchasing a hot tub, depending, I mean, you can go as big as you want on that aspect, but for a smaller property, I've got a specific one I like from Home Depot. It's like $4,000, and then you got to put in the electrical. So the electrical is going to be your biggest expense. I personally wire my own for $220 because it's so much better. And but I know a lot of people who do it $110, and so if you're doing a $110 run, $500-$600 to $1,000 depending on where your panel is. If you're doing $220, it's probably going to be $1,500 to $2,000.
Cool. And do you drain them after each stay, or is it just, you know, making sure the cleaners check the chemicals, or is it a separate like vendor who maintains it?
So it's a separate vendor who maintains it.
Okay.
And it's very much so like checking the chemicals, making sure they're correct. I used to do the whole like I'm gonna have my cleaners like take care of it and do that, and I do that on one of mine still. And that one I like to dump that one every time, just because I don't have a professional necessarily like doing all of the in-depth chemical to make sure that it's perfect, because it's always better to dump your hot tub, and like that like rules depend on the market that you're in. So like for the Smokies, for example, like it is a law that you have to dump the hot tub every single time. North Carolina, it's not. North Carolina, like you can have the same water in there as long as the chemicals are getting maintained and treated. And so that's what we make sure. We make sure that we subcontract all that out to get it, make sure it's taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm sure it pays for itself in one stay, like, or the monthly fee, you know, the monthly maintenance pays for itself in one stay, I'm sure. But cool. Can you talk? We'll wrap up here in a minute, but just a couple marketing tips in an effort to try and get more direct bookings. And I feel like that's kind of what everyone's trying to do, but it's just so hard to compete with the Airbnb and VRBO. And is that something even that Host Help is like trying to do, I guess?
Yeah. So you've hit the nail on the head on like one of the hardest things in our industry. So You're 100% right. You're never going to outspend Airbnb. They're going to spend millions of dollars every single day marketing and trying to drive more people into the platform. And we are very thankful for that. From a like getting direct bookings, you always want to start with the path of least resistance. And right off the bat, that's going to be material that's inside your home of like, hey, like next time book direct and save, like scan this QR code, anything like that. Collecting that guest information. We collect guest information through our rental agreements. And so we have that to be able to remarket it back to guests. But the thing you really got to remember is a lot of these OTAs have just built brand loyalty. Like I know people that have stayed in my units 4 or 5 times and they simply will not go outside of Airbnb. Like they know that I do it direct, they know that they could, and they still choose to go through Airbnb because they have that like security feature of like, I'm booking through this company. If anything goes wrong, I can reach out to them. And so you're just going to have some people that way. But from a net dollars in your bank account, I think the best thing to do is maximize Airbnb, VRBO, and have a direct booking site. But yes, this is very much so something on my agenda of how do we crack the code of direct bookings, but we don't sacrifice the income of our homeowners. Because as a property manager, it's 100% in my best interest to do more direct bookings, even if it means lower income for my homeowners. You get to collect the funds. You get to control a lot more of it. You don't have to provide as good a quality because you have them locked into a rock solid agreement that Airbnb can't just go, nope, we're changing this. I mean, on that note, like I had Airbnb come through one time where we had a national outage on internet. It was random. It was like a year and a half ago. And like the entire East Coast was out of internet for like 4 hours. It was ridiculous. And Airbnb refunded my guests 25% of their stay because of that. And like I had to go pull articles of like no one had internet to get this back. But like you don't have to deal with that stuff if it's direct bookings. And so the moment we can provide more income for our homeowners than we can from the other OTAs and do it ourselves, yeah, we'll absolutely do it. But that's the code we're trying to crack, and it is a hard one.
Yeah. No, it's such an interesting topic. It's crazy, the brand loyalty. I've seen that too. And
Yep.
And I mean, that's where we start our search every time, you know, we're looking at my wife and I are looking at taking a trip. It's always on Airbnb first. I mean,
oh yeah,
they definitely they have the market on lock in that way. But
cool.
Well,
say, like, I got invited to Airbnb's headquarters. They run a tight ship, man. Like it is awesome out there. And like the people are super nice. And like it actually felt like they were trying to work more closely with people like me this time I was out there. And so I've definitely changed my tune to them because everyone talks about how like, oh, we're all the hosts and we all hate Airbnb. That's not true. Like we actually really do appreciate them and they are making steps to work closer with us. And so we are thankful for that. But again, as always, like end of the day, we serve our homeowners. And so that is our goal, is to take care of them to the best of our ability. And right now it's Airbnb, I think.
Yeah, well, that's encouraging to hear. Thank you for that. And yeah, I know you're a busy man and we both got businesses to run. And yeah, I just wanted to maybe end this part, and I hope we can do this again soon. There's a ton of things that, you know, I'd love to dig into in the future, but if you could give one piece of advice to someone buying their first short-term rental today in this market, what would it be?
Okay, so you're buying your first short-term rental in this market and you want the number one piece of advice. It's all about who you're working with to buy it, in all honesty. It's working with someone who has done it before, who understands the actual income numbers you can generate and isn't just trying to push a sale on you on that. Like I'm very, very big on like the people that we work with in that situation of where I'm actually trying to buy something, that they have the knowledge and honestly have done it themselves. The places you can get in trouble the most is honestly, you lose in the draft. Like that's when you lose in Airbnb, is you lose at the very beginning. And so I've seen a lot of people who've gone in and said, I'm buying this deal and it's awesome. And I look right in their eyes and go, I wouldn't buy this deal, but you know, have at it. Here's why I wouldn't. And they still do it. And those deals tend to be the ones that 2 years later, they're like, I screwed up. I made a huge mistake. And so you don't know you're losing in short-term rentals until about a year and a half later because we're so seasonal. And so make sure that the person you're working with, they've done it before. That'd be my number one advice.
That's a great point. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your time and wisdom. It's really fun to see what you're building and be a small part of that. And I'm grateful for you and your family and your team, man. So thanks for the time today.
You too, Sean. It's always a pleasure to be on here, man. And I love you guys and love what y'all are doing as well. And so anytime I can help, you just let me know. And I would love to do this again. Let's do it again sometime in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe. This has been incredibly helpful. And for you listeners, thank you for tuning in. What I appreciate most is that Joe doesn't really sugarcoat anything. Short-term rentals can be an amazing wealth building tool, but they're still a business. And the margins between having it be a great investment and a constant headache that slowly wears you down, that margin usually comes down to the operations and your expectations. So for investors that are listening, whether you already own a short-term rental or you're thinking about buying your first one, conversations like this are exactly why we do this show. Real insight from people here in our market who are actually in the business doing the work. So if you want to learn more about Host Help or connect with Joe and his team, we'll be sure to include those details in the link and show notes below. And Joe, man, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspective. I love talking with you, and looking forward to doing it again soon. And to everyone who's listening, thank you for spending a little time with us today. We don't take this lightly at all. There's a lot of things pulling at all of our attention 24/7. So you choosing to spend some time with us means the world to me. And we hope to see you again next time on the next episode of Quiet Waters Currents.